Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans of what we do around here. This is the 4/18/22 edition of Raw. This show is just, anyhow, it's here and it doesn't really need to be here, but it is what it is. So, we move into the show. Jerry Lawler is on commentary. Jimmy Smith and Byron Saxton are the other commentators. Video recap early. Seth Rollins entered. Kicking off Raw, Rollins said he felt like fighting but didn't want to do it alone. He invited Cody Rhodes to the ring. Rhodes then enters. Good reaction for him. Asked how he felt to be on top of the world. Rhodes then said he was feeling familiar. He and Rollins standing in the ring in Buffalo. He called it Rhodes Country. He basically said um, he talks about or making a reference to when he beat members of the Shield with Goldust years ago. Not that anyone would get that reference because, WWE lifespan of storylines is maybe or at best if we're nice. Anyway, Rollins acted like his happy self until Rhodes interrupted him to soak in more of the cheers. Rollins then plans on telling Cody how much respect he had for the Rhodes family and how much respect he had for Cody's journey away before returning. However, all the hard work Rhodes put in was nothing compared to Rollins because he made Rhodes a star one night at WrestleMania. Rhodes then told him to skip over all the stuff and then reveal his uh, WrestleMania mystery opponent for the Backlash thing. Rollins then said he's better than Rhodes despite what Rhodes might think. Rollins then said he knew Rhodes' goal was the title, but Rollins had already reached those heights and that made him better. Rhodes acknowledged that Rollins reached the top of the mountain not just once but 4 times. That doesn't change what happened at WrestleMania. Rhodes spent the last few years in management role and learned a lot about mediation. They said they could go back and forth, claiming who was better, or simply ask a neutral party, the people of Buffalo. Rollins then suggested if Rhodes thought it was so easy, he should wrestle in the main event tonight against a mystery opponent of Rollins' choosing. Crowd chants yes, and Rhodes accepts. Sasha Banks and Naomi defeat Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan to retain the Women's Tag Team Championships. This is fine. Banks and Naomi are in control over their opponents. Ripley catches Banks using her hair as a weapon, and then Morgan posts Naomi on the outside. Ripley dives on Banks on the barricade, which leads to a break less than 3 minutes into the match. Ripley and Morgan basically do a double team maneuver, including a bulldog, into a near fall on Naomi. Ripley blind tags in, and Morgan is hitting Naomi with a power bomb. Ripley then followed up with a riptide, but Morgan failed to hold off Banks, who broke up the pinning attempt. Banks and Naomi followed up with a combo finisher, and Banks pinned Ripley to retain the title. Ripley then argued with Morgan after the match, complaining about the broken up pinfall. Ripley then attacked Morgan from behind and lays her out with a riptide. Sarah tries to interview Ripley after the break. Ripley said nobody deserved an explanation for what happened. Does anyone really care about this? Speaking of does anyone really care, Sonya Deville and Bianca Belair segment. Deville enters. She said she never gave up on being a fighter. She's forced into it, into an authority position. She watched Mania. She knew she wanted to be back in the ring. It's nothing personal. It's just business, she says. Belair interrupted. Deville warned Belair that there would be repercussions if she got her hands on her. The crowd encouraged her to do it. Belair then suggested that they have the title match right now. Deville then said she didn't wait 3 years to finally get her opportunity in the rusted out suburb in New York. Deville then suggests they have a match somewhere where Belair's loss would be bittersweet in Belair's hometown of Knoxville, Tennessee. Deville said she would be Another quick loss for Belair, this time in front of her family. Belair hoisted up her KOD, but Deville warned her to put her down, or else Belair chucked her down. Veer defeats Jeff Brooks 113. Veer wins with a submission after $1 million clothesline and a modified camel clutch, putting the hold on again after the match. In the back, Deville complained to Adam Pearce about Belair putting her hands on her. Pearce said that he'd take action fine against Belair, but Deville should worry about her own repercussions. Higher-ups aren't happy about her abusing her power. Belair entered, said she'd offered to pay the fine to Pearce. Belair held up a $1 bill and handed it to Pearce. Deville couldn't believe the fine was only $1. Pearce then smirked and responded, "I didn't buy the book, and I did it by the book," and then Deville is not happy. KO show with Ezekiel lie detector tests. Kevin Owens wanted the lie detector test to be done without bias, so he had Chad Gable join him as administrator of the test. And then Gable, who is encouraging me to get my phone, will be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Anyway, so we go into that second hour. We do the whole kind of the lie detector gimmick, and ultimately that's where it goes. Kind of what it is. Anyhow, so Owens wants the lie detector to be fair. Gable is joined to administer. He purely objected, but then he beat Ezekiel in a match. He enters. Owens welcomes Elias to the show. Ezekiel reiterated that he's his younger brother. Gable asked him a few baseline questions first, and the polygraph results could be shown on the big screen. Gable also asked him if Gable Stevenson is ace-foiled. Brett Owens told him to focus because he paid $150 Canadian to do this. Gable then asked if Ezekiel was his name and said yes. Gable then asked if his older brother was Elias, and he said yes. Results show that he's telling the truth. Owens is angry and asked if the name was really Elias. Ezekiel said no, and the machine showed he was still telling the truth. Owens blamed it on Gable, who really did this objectively, and Owens told Gable to leave and said he wasn't paying him the money. Ezekiel called Owens the biggest liar in WWE. That takes a lot of guts. Anyway, Gable knocked Ezekiel down from behind. Ultimately, this is just stupid. Ezekiel defeats Chad Gable via disqualification, 3 minutes and 33 seconds. Gable controls for the early part until Ezekiel hits a spine buster, and I gotta grab my phone again. We'll be back. You win 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. And again, it's a pretty basic deal. I mean, the issue with Gable and controlling Ezekiel, hits a spine buster and applies a single leg crab. Otis runs in, knocks Ezekiel over for the DQ. Saxton acted like he believed it was a different person, and this is all stupid. Lawler joked that Saxton and Street Profits must listen to the same music as the Easter Bunny, hip-hop, and Saxton didn't seem to laugh at this. Non-title match, Street Profits defeat the Raw Tag Team Champions Orton and Riddle. Ford goes to the top, Riddle brings him down with a Spanish Fly. Going to the break, they exchanged strikes, and then everybody taps out. Orton and Riddle each hit draping DDTs before Riddle tags back in, setting up the RKO. Orton is pretty much in control. Ford begins signaling to the back. Usos music hits. The Usos doesn't show up, but that distracted them after the match. Ford said, "This is a lesson for everybody. The Usos weren't the only team that RK Bro should be worried about. Who cares?" Edge and Damian Priest segment. Edge and Damian Priest were in the dark smoky room. Edge sat on a throne. Priest said last week The lights going out was meant to remind people who they were, so people that sit in the dark. Edge said that this side has always been inside of him, and that the seeds were planted when he first arrived and with the brood, but they all forgot about that, except that Edge continuously reminds us that he was in the brood. So Edge rambled on some more before he admitted that AJ Styles was the only one man enough to face Edge and challenge him for a rematch at Backlash, and finally set a stake in his heart. Edge said he would be Styles at Judgment Day. Yeah, who cares? Anyway, in the locker room, Schreiber asks Styles about Edge's challenge. Styles refused to refer to him as Judge Edge and accepted the challenge. Lights flicker and Styles warned Sarah to get out. Dim blue lights came to reveal Priest and Edge. Styles attacked them, but then laid them out, and they laughed like bad people. Anyway, Theory defeats Finn Balor to hit the or win the United States Championship. 11:38, probably best match of the night. Theory hits a neckbreaker off the apron, which goes to a break just as the third hour begins. Theory hits a rolling drop kick during the break, but Balor fights back until Theory cuts him off with a spinning side slam for near fall. Theory then goes to drop kick again, but Balor countered into a sit-out powerbomb for near fall. Balor then follows up with stomps and a sling blade and running drop kick. Balor then goes to the top, but Theory brings him down with a springboard Spanish fly for near fall. Balor then countered the ATL attempt and followed up with a flip dive. Theory dodges the coup de grace and hits the ATL for pinfall win. Theory then is the new champ. Vince McMahon enters to his music. Theory joined on the stage and they take a selfie. Selfie thing is just stupid. Then we go Rollins referencing the weekend in here because the outfit of Crocodile reminds him of his own Shield gear. I don't know. Anyway, so we go to the wedding trash. R-Truth is the officiant to marry some combination of Reggie, Akira Tozawa, Dana Brooke, and Tamina. Announced that 24/7 was off limits. During the Tumble confirmation ceremony, Nikki Ash and Garza and Angel also among the guests. Brooke and Tamina entered. Then the crowd sang and chanted "What" as Brooke and Reggie read their vows. They applauded Tamina and Tozawa because they kept their vows to 3 words or less. Truth asked if anyone objected. Tamina said she did. She yanked Reggie over to her side before pushing Tozawa to Brooke. Tamina then put Reggie and Tozawa together before joining Brooke herself. Crowd cheered when they thought Tamina might marry Brooke, but this was all pointless because she wound up back with Tozawa. They put rings on before the men kissed their brides. They made it official, so Reggie immediately pinned Brooke to win the 24/7 title. Tamina decks Reggie and pinned him. Before Tozawa rolls up Tamina to win the title, Brooke then gave Tozawa a high cross to win the title back. Truth carried her away to safety. Anyway, earlier today, MVP has a message for Bobby Lashley. MVP couldn't believe that Lashley competed without him at WrestleMania, but he moved on to something bigger and better. He made Lashley almighty image what he can do with Omos, and then MVP said Omos was challenging him to an arm wrestling contest next week. Omos said the almighty era was coming to an end. Does anybody really care about any of this? Anyway, Schreiber interviews Lashley. Lashley said he knew he had to go through Omos to get to MVP. Omos is bigger than him, but he'd find out who's stronger next week because he accepts the arm wrestling challenge. Lashley versus Omos arm wrestling challenge, and Bianca Belair, Sonya Deville for next week. Rollins plans to introduce Rhodes' opponent. Cody Rhodes defeats Kevin Owens 17-26. Owens blocks a suicide dive, grabbing Rhodes and sending him into a fallaway slam into the barricade, which leads to a break 90 seconds into the match. Rhodes fights back on the break and crushes Owens. Owens crushes him with a senton for a little bit there. Then Rhodes counters or counter to suplex. Owens comes right back with a spike DDT. Owens goes for the senton. Rhodes gets the knees up. Rhodes tackles Owens over the announce table. And Rollins ends up with music again. They battle on the top turnbuckle until Owens shoved Rhodes off and hits a frog splash for near fall. Owens then immediately follows up with a senton for Rhodes and then applies a schoolboy for near fall. Owens and Rhodes trade super kicks before Rhodes drops Owens with a clothesline. Owens then comes back for a pop-up powerbomb for near fall. Owens hits an avalanche fisherman buster, but Rhodes gets his foot on the ropes. Owens then tries a powerbomb, but Rhodes backdropped him on the apron. Rollins then demands Owens get up and get his stuff back in the ring. Rollins follows Owens to the back. Rhodes is frustrated with the result being a countout. Goes to top rope to foes. Rollins pushes him off to the outside. Rollins screams at Rhodes as the show ends. Stupid segment to end the show. And Raw is completely a missable program, but we'll be back with more right after.